Have you had any sort of revelatory bits of advice or things you've learned from the many famous other producers you worked with, like Steve Lillywhite and Gil Norton and all these other people you've...
Oh, loads. Each one.
Can you think of anything in particular that was a kind of light bulb moment?
There's probably been quite a few of those. They tend to come up where I think, where did I learn this?
Yeah.
And kind of, or someone will ask me why I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And I think, I haven't got a fucking clue. Why am I doing this? Because this is the way I do it. And then I have to think back and I think, oh, this is probably something from... I was very fortunate. My journey of producers I engineered for back in the day.
Well, yeah.
Were there was a lot. So people like, and also about approaches. It wasn't necessarily always a particular skill. It was about the way you approach sessions. And then I think seeing in my own mind which ones were the most effective for the way I like to work.
Right.
But Time with Eno was, again about creating a mindset for working on projects and an atmosphere of creativity which didn't follow any real pattern as far as I was aware, but it obviously does. But it keeps things very kind of on their toes, which is, one's one for getting people to play different instruments and
I can imagine
moving things around, or starting from one random fader and then building the mix around these things.
Right.
We tend to do it in quite a formulaic, building mixes, formulaic way. Gil with guitars, he had a certain approach to guitars, so that it won't be like I do that the whole time. But
what was that? What did that involve then?
I think it was just the way we mic things, maybe.
Yeah.
Again, because everyone does similar things. What you also notice is when you see younger people who come work with you at some point, and you'll see a multi-track of theirs at some. You realise these things all get passed on.
Yeah.
Trevor was obviously just, the patience and the time you put into things, because every project was very long.
Yeah.
Very intense. All kinds of things. Lillywhite was about, what's the best thing in this song? Turn it up loud was his,
right.
Make the best thing loud was a good piece of advice. But I think also creating an atmosphere, and I say this often, where people perform their best. So I like studio sessions to be fairly seamless, or all the work's going on behind the scenes. I know it, the assistant knows it. People don't need to hear about problems, don't need to hear about things not working.
Right.
The working day is a fluid, creative experience. And part of these locations, going to places, gets that out of different bands. We've always thought, what's the right place for this band to do a project? It's not always about what you have. I mean, I won't always be saying RAK, because for some bands it might not be the right place.
Okay.
But I think alone, lots of beats or groove things from Steve Osborne, that was always a big thing of his. So I think there's lots of little things you picked up over the years. I mean, you can't sit in a room with someone for 3 years, 12, 14 hours a day without picking up something they do, where it kind of just permeates without you being aware of it, or if you consciously made an effort of learning it. Communication, I think that's a big thing.
Well, I think, from what you said, a lot of it is the people skills, isn't it?
It is. You've seen, we've worked with a lot of similar people. You've seen the blunt force objects, and you've seen the kind of cuddles, and there's a place in between for everybody.
Yeah.
So to get the best out of them. But I think going back to when we were first starting as well, the variety of producers coming through was a bit different. And also you engage with them. It's quite a solo thing now. Everyone has their own studio. Whereas it was all multi-use studios when we started. So you had that community of bumping into people and conversations about things, which is why things like MPG now, you go there that night, and it's the only night in a year where I'll see half the people I know.
Yeah.
Because it's not when the building's like this, here I see a lot of people, which is great.
Yes.
People will pop up, have a coffee, whether it's artists or producers or engineers or I've worked with in the past, which is lovely. It's lovely having that here. And again, they'll be talking about something. People will talk about a piece of gear they're interested in. Some of your videos, someone will mention something, and I think, never fucking heard of it, better have a look at that. And then it becomes revelatory as, a piece of gear to use in the future.
Yeah.
So going right back to the question you originally answered me, I think, you picked up bits and pieces off many people. I'm thankful for that journey.
I was going to say, you enjoy it so much, you just kind of keep doing it, aren't you?
I can't imagine stopping, to be honest.
No.
Also, when I was 20, I thought, will I be doing it at 30? When I was 30, I thought, will I be doing it at 40? When I was 40, oh God, I can't imagine doing this at 50. I'm 60 next year, and it's still kind of flying by.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine stopping yet. Because I've just only had this room for a year, and I love it in here.
Yeah, and you're keeping busy. People are
Yeah, no,
ringing
it's
up.
been great. We've had a really busy year and a half, just like right through. And this year is now almost filled up to November. So we are
Fantastic.
busy. And also still getting to travel around a bit, which is lovely.
And now you've got Emma here managing you and looking after you. So,
Indeed,
so
yeah.
she inks things in the diary ahead of for you, does she?
Well, I would like that. I don't know if I get that much priority for rooms, but no, that was a change just for a sort of change of scene and also to get this whole everything under one umbrella almost. Having the production room here, which I love. Being able to use Studio 2, which is just fantastic for doing backing tracks. And having the management in the same place, it just all kind of worked well. Still, as I said, working out of here a long time. Last year we were away quite a lot.
Yeah. Where were you?
Last year we were in South Africa.
Wow.
That's not the royal we, that is.
Yes.
It was, which was really fun, and that's out at the moment and doing great actually. That's part of the year's varied
What's
projects.
the record there? Who are they? What?
That's a guy Harry Lloyd, and his band is Waiting for Smith.
Okay.
But I keep getting texts every morning with different chart positions around the world, so it's in that fun part of release now where you actually see the outcome of all the work. But we were down in Hout Bay. I don't know if you know Cape Town. Ever been there?
Not been there. No.
It's beautiful. I mean, there's a few clips I put up, and the music very much reflects the location in lots of ways, and it obviously reflects him as his character. But it was the perfect geography for the project.
And did he come to you because of something particular on your CV, or?
I'm not sure what the original.
Yeah, I don't know whether to ask people that. When they come to me.
Yeah, and also what people have come to you for quite often surprises you.
Yeah.
You think it would be one of the kind of main players, but sometimes it's something quite obscure. And you think, oh, really?
Like the hi-hat sound on a record.
Or just a particular record, and it was like, well, haven't forgotten doing it, but it wasn't one which has popped into recent memory.
Yeah.
But we did a few tracks and we enjoyed that, so we then did an album. But COVID put pay to quite a lot of the travel for projects, because I was doing some really interesting projects in Colombia.
Oh, I've been to Colombia. Yeah.
There's some great music out there, and also wherever you go, even if you're doing the kind of music you normally do, there's just a little slant to it, which comes from the place, especially in Colombia. No one can help their salsa upbringing, even if they're playing straight ahead indie stuff. There's a little bit of something in there.
Yeah. No, very much. It was the one I did was a bit of a crossover kind of record with a bit of traditional Colombian in it.
Well, these guys were aiming to be. One of the projects was just like a rock indie band,
Right.
but it still had some sense of harmony or rhythm, which was from the location.
Yeah. How did you get on in Colombia? I mean, it was a pretty dangerous place when I was there 20 years ago.
I mean, there's parts for sure. Medellin was amazing. I did that project I did there, and then I did another project in Barranquilla, which is in the north. And the only issue there was the humidity and the heat.
Right.
It was pretty crazy hot.
Yeah.
And then down, I said it was the same artist. Went to Bogota for a while. Amazing studio on top of a skyscraper in Bogota.
All right.
Had this incredible view at night. And a lovely guy running it. But it was safe. Apart from one place I stayed, and I was about to go to the shop, and they're like, "Oh no, you can't go there."
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, it's there," and it's like, "No, you still can't go there." So it's just a case of knowing your areas.
As long as you've got somebody there who knows the ropes.
That could be anywhere. I've had some pretty crazy times in London recently.
Yeah.
So you never really know where the location is. And also Holland last year.
All right.
And we're back there hopefully for a project in Amsterdam, Haarlem, in August.
Oh, great.
So. With bands from these areas. Harry was different because we chose to go somewhere to record it because he had connections there, and we went about that in the way of not going to a studio. We were in a studio for part of it, but just finding a great location and taking stuff. Everything travels out now, or can do.
Yeah, I see you got everything fit.
I mean, that's all flight case, but for that project, I literally just took UADs and a handful of mics.
Right.
And it was just really fun. It really comes across in the recording as well. I mean, because of the nature of being we're in a house which looked out the most incredible view of Hout Bay and the mountains. But you're not quite so precious about certain things, but the actual mixes sounded really energetic and have a lot of atmosphere.
So you always bring stuff back here
to fit, mix, yeah. That's the one bit where being in a familiar territory is vital. When I came back with that, when I was listening to the stems, I thought, I can hear Harry and I talking. on some of them. Obviously, we had a guy doing percussion, we're having a drink and chatting whilst he was doing stuff. But it all disappeared into the sort of mix of the things.
Excellent.
But yeah, everything comes back here to mix.
Right.
Pre-prod in here normally.
Yes.
This is, it's a great room. I mean, you can only see the actual comfort of the space. And so what has happened has been, you're having that pre-prod meeting and we're thinking about how we're going to go about the record.
Yeah.
And you can see people kind of, the next question is going to be, how can't we do most of it in here?
Yeah.
And so we've done more and more in here. I love going downstairs at RAK to cut backing tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then be able to bring them up here or do guitars down there as well. But keys, obviously got pile of keys, and vocals, AC off, double glazed, it's quiet.
Right.
And I always
Doesn't
like,
get too hot in here, then, when you.
no, when that's cranking, it's fine. We
Yeah.
just pop it off here and there.
Mm.
And I really like doing vocals with someone standing next to me.
Yes.
I mean, that's been the case for years, even when I was in studios, at Psalm or
Really?
when
Yeah.
we were, where did I see you? At Eden.
Yeah.
I always preferred having someone at the desk. Quite often without headphones.
Yeah.
Most of the time with headphones, but it just means the communication's so much better. And I hate talkbacks, It's either always off when I want it on or on when I want it off. And also it's just frustrating, I think, when you suddenly get these bursts of commentary into your headphones. So it's just tends to be a more relaxing process, just being right next to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you get used to this room quickly? Was it sort of.
I did actually. I mean, they had some paneling. They had
Yeah.
the desk, they had a little desk at the other end. It was more of a writing pre-prod room, I think.
Yeah.
Once I dumped all my stuff in, there's a whole, obviously cuts down a lot of reflections or mixes everything up. Cushions, all the piles, literally everything, and stuck everything up. Sat down, wanted a week or so just to get used to it and tweak stuff around. And it kind of just worked from the get-go.
Great.
In fact, an improvement on where I'd been before. Not my strong room, but the other pre-prod room I had. And then mixing stuff just for myself quickly, taking it out. I was like, oh, that makes complete sense. Okay, a little bit of a tweak to get certain things, but it wasn't miles off by any means.
Do you use SonarWorks or any of that sort of?
No, I haven't. I mean, I feel we should make an effort to do it properly. Whatever properly is, you know what I mean? Even I've had rooms done properly and they sound terrible.
Yeah.
But getting it so that I can actually see where those points are. We did have some Genelecs in here which was set up, so you could see the kind of.
Because these are older ones, aren't they?
They are. They're only there because I blew up one of my 1031s, which is slightly smaller.
Okay.
But I've kind of got used to these. Although, there's me saying that, they are borrowed from RAK. So, I guess they'll be going back now, I've said that. But I've got used to them. There's just a bit more weight, and for the size of the room, they work well.
Okay.
But I bounce between those, the Avantones.
And have you got some posh headphones as well?
Got a mixture of things, various sort of Sennheisers, different in-ears. I go through a whole bunch of them, really just normally lying back on there, having a listen to stuff, seeing what pops out or doesn't do what it should be doing on different setups. Through the TV monitor, I've been getting into that recently. Just a little speaker at the back, just for a change of scene. Even the Mac, through the RAK Studio, the little speaker in there.
Right.
You suddenly notice things which, oh
Yeah.
what's that? That's been, going to become annoying on some system somewhere. So, we're playing around with it. And then new toys kind of pop in here and there.
Yeah, I keep seeing you on Facebook buying new stuff.
I'm trying not. I mean, my thing to myself is no, because there's not really any more space. And also,
Those are nice things, aren't they?
I don't need. They're all purposeful things.
Yeah.
Well, I really don't need any more. But it's mainly software because you think I do not need another. I do not need. I've got all these beautiful things, but it's the toys. It's the creative.
It's inspiring, isn't it, when you get a new toy?
Well, they're great, and there's some amazing ones out there now. I've been really a big fan of all the baby audio stuff. I don't know if you use that.
Yeah.
There's a thing there, spaced out, which is a kind of reverb delay combo, but I use them often just the reverb because it's really colourful, or just a delay because it gives you some very strange patterns and filters. So that gets used a lot.
Right.
A lot of things, but everything what came out recently, which I love, are the, however you pronounce it, ERK sound, ERK sound, ERK sound. Bloom, they've just brought out. I say not that recently, but I've always loved Soothe and Bloom. I've been really liking on certain things, guitar cabs and stuff, just taking out a bit of something which you would take out, but obviously it's a fixed point, so something which just moves around with the chord changes. But just for adding a bit of clarity, taking out some boxiness. But yeah, Instagram keeps throwing these things at you. You have to kind of try and flick off quickly before you start reading through the blurb.
Yeah, yeah. So how does things work these days in the music biz in terms of like having Emma look after you compared with, say, 20 years ago? Because obviously people have stopped buying CDs.
Yeah.
So you don't, I presume, you're mostly focused on getting a good fee for doing a project rather than the potential for the old-fashioned 3%, whatever.
Yeah, well, royalties obviously looked after us in the old days.
Yeah.
It's difficult because the creative side and what we want to do as producers, mixers, that doesn't change.
Right.
So, and I've had this over the years where comments have come up, well, we've only got this budget, but you can do it, just do it quickly. It's like, no, I can't.
No.
It doesn't matter if the budget's this or this, the same process goes into it for me because that's the way I know how to make records. And you can't do something half as well. I mean, it's like doing a demo. I can't imagine doing a demo because I'd always want to just take it to that final
You're
point.
a perfectionist.
I think we all are. You can't help, you can't just stop halfway through and it'd be so frustrating or get to a point. So it's different. It's trying to work out, I mean, this has always been the case back in, trying to find a deal that makes a project work.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just flows and it's financially supporting. You can get rates, you can look after the studio, you can make sure that you can keep on doing what you do. Now there tends to be a bit of a mix between future payments and upfront, depending on, again, the budget. Sometimes there's the budget in place and we'll just do the record. It'll be the usual points, but again, for a lot of things, those points have moved on to publishing points rather than, and when you explain the maths to a lot of the younger producer managers now, they get it, because they haven't grown up with the previous one.
Sure.
Because because publishing points were like the kind of the baby. You don't want to give parts of it away. Back in the day, it was a much harder ask. But if you're reducing, say, your cost by a significant amount, even with publishing points, it has to be a pretty successful record to kind of make the difference up.
Sure.
Or moderately successful at least. But at least it means you're all, also I always think with a little bit of publishing, you've all got sort of skin in the game.
Yeah, you're more invested.
So after all these years, a lot of it is kind of contacts in the sense that, a record doesn't stop with me when I finish mixing it. You're keen for it to be part of the whole journey. So now it's those introductions or trying to get things into onto labels or gigs or management or festivals or, you want to be part of that process, driving it along. And a lot of people get that. Because you're still incentivized, even by a small amount, to keep being part of that.
So do you get involved with sort of?
I do. I mean, to be fair, I do that anyhow, probably. But it's nice to be vested in some way.
Because I often sort of think I'd rather just be making records. I don't want to be a manager and a.
Oh well, no, it doesn't take up my time in that way.
No,
it's just it'll be conversations.
Email sort of.
Yeah, or just thinking, and after again, it's years. I mean, I've been talking to you guys on and off for 20 years. So, but in that amount of time, you realise that you just make connections without knowing it. And I love introducing people. So, you should meet so-and-so because they're doing this there. And then the next thing you know, there's a little festival going on or there's become a circuit of something.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to be able to connect people up.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. I came across a project you did where you're the artist, Hydra.
Oh, yeah. That's fun.
Lovely. So
thank you very much. No, that was a lot of fun.
How did you squeeze that in? What was the story with
that? Was about COVID. I've always wanted to do that,
yeah,
but just never had the time. And then I produced an album with Irini, the artist.
Yes.
And she'd come back after and said, "Do you want to do a record together?" And I thought, well, yeah, that sounds fun. But she was very persuasive, and also there was the time.
Yeah.
I really like working with her. She's a very interesting lady, very creative. And so that came about from there. I think we did a couple of weeks together.
Yeah.
And then she was doing bits and pieces out in Athens. She's based in Athens.
Oh, right.
And then I was sort of wrapping kind of keys and beats around.
So would you start off a track?
We started tracks as acoustic and vocal.
Right, okay. So there were kind of a song written.
Yeah, so the song would be...
Get creative.
We'd discuss those songs, but that would be like an acoustic and vocal performance. And then it'd be processing that and building keys and many drum parts around it. And different drum sounds. If you notice, there's quite a lot of mixture. Yes, I was trying to do that. It's lots of spring reverbs on old kits, but drum machines doing their bits within it. And coincidentally, we've just started the second album this week.
Oh,
she popped in by surprise last Friday, and it's like, come on, we both want to do it. But she's had a child, so and also she's very busy writing music for TV and plays and theatre and her own music
Yeah.
and having a new child. But we've got a game plan now as to how we're going to do it.
And you managed to make time for that
Yeah, well,
amongst the sort of more...
there is, because also time that is almost like time off. So it's, if you need a bit of a break or you've allowed a bit of time between projects.
Yeah.
The last year actually has been pretty relentless, but having just a week in here on my own to go through things, just potter with tracks, learn some new bits of gear occasionally. I'm still, I mean, all I've been doing on that is use it for soloing things so far. I need to actually play with it for a while.
Yeah, that's the S3.
Yes, definitely bits of software to get on top of. But in that time, I've been now doing Hydra stuff. I started on one of the
Because
tracks.
it's nothing like having a project to learn how to use something, is it?
Yeah,
you can't
no, it's
just
great.
read the manual and sit.
And I don't expect clients to sit around watching me
exactly.
figure something out. So
Yeah.
also, most of the time, you want to be doing things that you know really well when you know, on a client-based project.
Yeah, you tend to fall back on the things you're familiar with, don't you? Really?
Which tends to come down to a kind of a core of things anyhow. You look at the drop-down list for plugins and stuff that have accumulated over the years. And I need a bit of AI. It just tells me what I use. So, you know, it can look at my Pro Tools session and say, well, you just use these 5 things all the time.
Yeah.
And then get everything else off the list. So I'm not having to churn through it all.
Yeah. Do you keep your Pro Tools up to the latest version all the time? Do you sort of tend to...
I do, but then I have jumped back occasionally when things aren't where they should be, quite frankly, for a release.
Do you ever have an assistant here sort of helping with you with things like file management?
Well, file management tends to happen when we're down in the studios.
Yeah.
I'm part of the network now, which is great.
Okay.
So I can be on the session downstairs and things are going on up
here. Yeah.
But also there's a lot of time when I'm recording tracks downstairs that the assistant can come up here. So they can be getting on with tidying tracks up, which is great. Plus, like all studios, RAK runs a kind of 10-hour day for the recording sessions. And I'm normally still fairly wide awake after that. So I can pop up here and do an hour of editing whilst it's all fresh in my head. Have it down ready for the morning to carry on. So because of that, we've been able to do things pretty quickly. That's the other thing with last year. I think the reason quickly and well. You know, they've all been really fun projects. Everyone's been very happy with how they've turned out. But just being able to get a lot done in the time.
And do you work a fairly strict number of hours a day? Do you take weekends off?
I take weekends off.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to at some point. Otherwise, I'll just never have been home. I don't work the crazy hours I was, which I didn't actually realize were crazy until after COVID. I thought, oh my God, I've been doing these hours for 30 years, which it was 10 till midnight, Mondays to Fridays. And I look back at it, that's just insane. That's kind of how we were programmed in
that's
the 80s.
That's the Gil Norton hours, isn't it?
Well, yeah, Gil, but also before that, it was Psalm back in the day. And you got dinner and lunch included, well, dinner maybe included in that. But those late hours, I always quite enjoyed just being able to dive into tracks. It's a very different mindset. People aren't around. But now I try and kind of get out of here 9ish. But, you know, I don't work to the clock. If there's something happening, I'm here later.
Do you have catering here? Do you get the...
We don't have the same day as when your wife was here. Well, not often. But there's plenty around here.
Yeah.
But no, I try to stop. If I'm coming towards the end of something or I'm realizing I'm kind of spending longer on something than I probably should, which means I should normally step away from it. You come back in the morning and that often happens though. You kind of wood for the trees, you come back in the morning and just go, oh, there you go, cut that, everything's sorted. It's just, you just need to step away.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I'm way lazier than I ever used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I start earlier. That's so different. So, I mean, it has come in. I can be in here at 8:30 some days, which
wow.
I didn't really see the left-hand side of midday in my 20s. So that's quite a change over the years.
But yeah, we certainly, I remember when I was working with Gil, it would be, we'd do sort of 10 till midnight or even 1. But then he'd say, oh, before we start tomorrow, could you just melodyne that vocal or whatever? So he'd be
Gil's hours were long, for sure. And also I used to do 6 days a week with Gil, which I never really understood. I just find I get easily as much done doing the hours I'm doing now as when we were doing 6 days a week.
Do you use Melodyne a lot? Do you tend to fiddle with that?
I will often have it on. I just have it on and it's not doing anything. And then as something starts to bug me, I'll just jump in and tap that word around. So it gets, it's that, it's the sort of longevity of something really. The more I listen to it, if it's not bugging me, I won't touch it.
Sure.
There's something it was Dave McCracken actually was telling me about just that kind of modern sound that it can add sometimes. If you do some bit of effect to it, just pulling everything slightly.
Certainly not
I
as
use
much
it
as
for
auto-tune does, though, is it?
No,
You
I mean,
can hear that straight away.
oh yeah, indeed. Even though that I use as an effect on certain, not as in the classic
Sure.
vocal effect, but as a sort of widener almost on a few things.
Yeah.
But with Melodyne, I'll run it and end up tapping things in as a mix goes on normally. Also, as an effect, you can just move it around to give me some octaves or to have a completely tight one, and various sort of settings on it. So it's almost like a strange double track to a vocal, or is the send to the effects for the vocal, which again creates a different space slightly around the vocal.
Okay.
It's just that the reverb is just slightly different tuning tweak to the vocal itself.
Like
And
a
it
chorus.
a bit of a colour, without being a really deliberate chorus.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a bit of space.
So do you mix in the box completely, or do you use some of these bits and bobs?
Things will pop out. It always ends up back in the box, because it just kind of has to now. Everyone's expectations, not only of turnaround, but also of adjustments.
Yeah, recalls.
The tiniest of adjustments, which back in the days of doing analog recalls, the actual recall would have had a wider margin of error than the adjustment you're asking for. Whereas now people will ask for that half dB here on something. There's a cut-off point for me where it moves from creativity to obsession, which I completely understand when it's your own thing. You can get drawn into these. If you say to people, if you can tell the difference between these two mixes next year, dinner's on me.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen. It's such listen, the things in the room, the speakers you're listening on, the system you're on, will be a wider change of the overall perception than that little adjustment. But, there's also a psychological sign-off. You want people to be happy, so there are those elements where I think, well, okay, we're not creative.
Rather than have the conversation.
Yeah, but also you want them to be happy and feel content that they've signed off on something.
Yeah.
A lot of what we do is, in that domain, I think, perception generally, of sound.
Customer service. Have you ever done any Dolby Atmos? What do you reckon to all that malarkey?
Funny enough, I got a message about that this morning, just preparing stems for it. I got kind of interested. The people at Dolby were asking me, quite a lot about whether I wanted to get the room done. I had an invite to go down there for a few days. I really liked it. It was very enjoyable sitting in that chair. A bit confusing if you're elsewhere in the room. But, and the plan was that I might do that for the tracks that I'm doing, so that you have first sort of dibs almost at being the person doing the Dolby version, the Atmos version. But I just haven't had time.
No.
So, and it's quite nice that people are doing that. They're doing it well. They do it efficiently and fast. And it really is your stems. It's just with a bit of smearing around. They're not going to jump on them, so you don't expect too much. With regards to the creativity side of it, I really appreciate what they're doing. There's great people doing big picture things, but it's not quite rewarding enough for me to spend the time doing it at this stage. I mean, there would be things I'd like to do just out of interest, like the Hydra album. Maybe that's a chance for me to get in there and properly learn it. But I think also everything that I went into my brain 2 years ago at Dolby is probably fallen out again. So I could do with a bit of a recap. We've got an amazing Dolby, probably one of the best Dolby Atmos rooms in town downstairs.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's literally just down there. I just need to get down there and figure it out. I don't know if you put your head in that room, it's a great space. So I will get to it at some point. Hopefully whilst it's still in fashion. At this rate, there'll be some other kind of experience going on in the audio world before I get to it.
If you're mixing your stereo in the box mix, do you come out of the box for anything across the mix bus, or do you stay inside?
I did, but the things I came out for all have great versions of in here now. In fact, most of these things I always had the 2500 over mixes. The Massenburg would often be doing a little bit of something. In fact, both of them, and then a few things in parallel quite often.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing which is still a bit hit and miss, is running things in parallel within tools, just because of the finer details of phase. Whereas if you're doing it analog, obviously everything's completely
going to be right.
It's locked.
Yeah.
But all these things I now have UAD-wise in here. And the other thing is when you've got a valve-based setup like I have here, that the internal ones sound the same every time I come back to the mix.
Yeah.
Whereas those ones, I'm like, if it's raining or humid or hot or cold, it's like, I'm sure that's not how it sounded yesterday. Plus, there's things like, where is it? That and the Summit and the LA2A. What you could do is look at them and they change. So, it's just being those little slightest taps or someone knocking something during the night. So it is actually, no, it's all internal.
Yes.
I might play around, pop it on there just to see.
Right.
I haven't ever come back going, I prefer it. That's the thing. So, and also there's great tape emulation now.
Well, yeah.
The things which I really like. Because you have,
Which one do you prefer?
I was using the UAD ATR.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up on, ATRs.
Yeah.
So it was a familiar thing for me, what to expect from the sound.
Okay.
When I listened to anything, because Psalm was just every room had ATRs in, as did, I think when I was at Westside. I love the machines to master on. So I used that a lot. Beforehand, I was using the Slate one. I can't remember what it was based on.
Oh, yeah.
But I quite like the sound of that. But recently it's been the ATR for the last year or so.
Okay.
Just doing a little bit. And again, it's not like you listen to it. Some things I prefer that. No, I prefer it off. So there's no dogma. We've had this conversation in the past about dogma. It's like, listen to it. Is it better or is it not better?
Yeah. Do you have you used the car? So you got your Ava set. Do you ever try the Crane song, Phoenix, and all those sorts of?
I do. I like that. The new one. We used to have the individual ones back in the day. Now it has the
It's all within one thing.
Yeah. I do like that for certain things. Sometimes if the vocal's a bit thin, I like that for bringing out some body.
Okay. Yeah.
Smoothing out sort of guitar if it's a little bright and scratchy. But again, you've got a lot of mix control on that. So I do like it.
Yeah. Apart from new Hydra material, what else are you working on at the moment? What's happened recently? Is it professional?
Professional. That's been really fun.
It's quite rocking, isn't it?
That's really rocking. Yeah. That was unexpected, and we had a meeting, and that was so much fun.
Yeah.
And they're so professional in their way of doing things.
Right.
And really great players.
Where did you do that? Did you record it here?
Yeah, we did it in Studio 2.
Yeah.
And then finished off up here.
Yeah.
Great players, so much energy in those songs, really fun to do. And so that was a case of making time for that one because it came in the middle of other things. But as I said, we're in South Africa with Harry Lloyd. Skinny Living was a big part of this year, which I really enjoyed. It got confusing with certain conversations because I did an album with Alabama 3
Yes.
at the start of the year. And Alabama 3 is actually more than 3 people in Brixton. And then I did an album in Alabama with 3 people. So exactly, trying to get this is quite confusing. People say, oh, no, I know about that. So no, that was Alabama 3. This was me in Alabama.
Working with 3 people.
So we were at the amazing Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals.
Oh, right. What was
I
that
think
like?
the space has so much history.
Yeah.
Again, it's about the geography, the location, bringing something to projects.
Yeah.
Plus the humidity and the temperature. Everyone vocally was saying how great it was.
Oh, I see.
They were singing the best they'd ever. So.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Also, you're standing on the spot where Aretha Franklin was singing, Respect. So, and the list of songs that came out of that studio. So that was fun. And we were then in Sheffield, Alabama for a while. And then I, again, mixed it and we finished it back over here. There's another band, The Horn, which came through here. That was downstairs. And we're back. In fact, I'm back with all these bands again this year, later in the year.
Oh, it's nice when people come back to you, isn't it?
It's always nice when people come back to you. I'm trying to think what else we did. The Skinny Living. There's a new label, actually, based out of Decca. Remember the Decca Studios?
Yeah.
That's all about to be revamped.
In West Hampstead?
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Which will be really interesting. I don't know if
It's
you've
going to be
been
a studio again, is it?
They're all coming back to the original rooms.
Oh.
And it's a great space.
Because it was the English National Opera rehearsal.
They've been in there for it. You know what? I've been in there because I know the people behind it. There's this label IXI. I did a great artist actually she's from New York, but based in Berlin, called Sarah Hartman. That was one of the recent set of mixes. I really loved doing that. But they are bringing the building back to its original state. It's good for all these, the traditional studios like RAK, Air, Abbey Road. It's not going to be an issue in competition. It's just bring more understanding and more action back to this area.
Great.
They can share things between each other. But it's great to see a project bringing one of the great studios back after just watching the decimation for so many years. That's an exciting project there. But again, RAK, it's such a great variety of things coming through here. Some of those things will be crossovers. I imagine Air in that place will have more of a kind of similar things because of the size of the rooms. But so that's been the project. Oh, Tallulah Rendell, she was fun. That's a repeat album. I think that's the third project I've done with her.
So you do quite a variety of genres, don't you?
Well, this is the thing which I am very lucky, I think.
Yeah.
That's when I started. It was very much more electronic stuff.
Right.
And left of centre. And then if you have success with a project, you tend to get given a lot of that.
Of course. Yeah.
And it took me a while to kind of wrestle myself out of doing 4-piece guitar bands. Which I love doing 4-piece guitar bands. I mean, 3 of these this year have been 4-piece guitar bands. But I also love doing something completely programmed electronica, which is why kind of Hydra's got a bit of that going on.
Yeah, of course. But I guess that's you mainly doing all the programming, just sitting there on your own.
Yeah, exactly.
Fiddling around.
But and then there was a band, very pop electronic names. The names keep changing, so I can't remember what the final name of the band was. But that was really interesting. Again, that was all electronica.
Right.
And just playing around in here, a bit of analog processing, but all programmed up. Quite a few solo female artists, which I've been really enjoying. Either who come with a band, but they're still, it's about the singer, the name of the artist. Or ones where it's been, can you put a band around something?
Yeah.
And then after all these years,
And
really good friends.
I mean, if somebody comes with a band, do you always use the band, or do you sort of say, actually?
Oh no, I absolutely always use the band.
Yeah.
Yeah. That goes back to when I first started working, and Trevor's amazing. He's Trevor Horn.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what you're most famous for, sacking the band.
Yeah, he
really.
switched out to get the. And I actually quite like the challenge of getting the best out of the people you have.
Okay.
So and you can always get there. It's just a bit more time.
Yeah.
This is why pre-production is really important for me.
Right. Right.
Because you get demos from a project, and I have no idea if that was done in 10 minutes or 10 days. They're so produced demos nowadays. So you get into pre-production, and it's you get to see how people play. And
do you still do the old-fashioned thing, like with a band like, say, Professional? Would you go into a rehearsal?
Exactly, yeah.
Like the old-fashioned way.
With Professional, they're the loudest band out. Amazing drummer.
Yeah.
So we went into a rehearsal room about this big, and
took your earplugs, I hope.
I did, yeah. And even then, it was still physically quite demanding. It was so loud. But so a lot of always pre-production. I've had to do it once or twice just because of location and budget, and I don't enjoy it quite so much. Eventually you do, but I love the fact that we hit the ground running when we go to studios.
And
Do
you get into sort of song structure-y things? And
so pre-production for me is being able to play around with that very quickly. Because you can just do it there and then just play that. Let's go from this chorus to here. Let's try this. Let's halve that. Let's see how this works. Tempo, very much so. How that changes the feel of a song so much. Johnny, the drummer in this band, I've also worked with him with Echo Belly, which is another great album I actually did here last year. Sorry, I don't know how that slipped my mind. We're downstairs doing Echo Belly, then up here. Really happy with how that turned out. We'd actually worked together back in the 90s when Echo Belly were sort of at the indie prime.
Right.
Lovely people, and it was a really fun project. But Johnny, the drummer, has been the same drummer on a few of these projects with regards to repeat players. But tempo, structure, getting an idea of how people play, and then with time details, bass, drums and bass, how they fit together.
Yeah.
You want to leave a lot of it to the studio. I like the things pop up in the studio. And just because we tie things down at pre-production doesn't mean that's the way it's going to be.
Right.
It might be a curveball on day 2, and it's like, actually, that's brilliant. Let's stay with that. But it just makes people aren't figuring out who I am. I'm not figuring out who they are. There's no red light fever. Everyone's relaxed. We normally had a few pints by that point, possibly even a big night out. And then, studio is just a much from the ground. If day one, you get stuff done.
Yeah.
And everyone feels confident. They know the parts. They're not having to figure stuff out.
When you're doing your Hydra stuff, is it all virtual synths, or do you actually plug in some real? I suppose you've got your real ones there, haven't you? You've got a few.
Yeah, no, some of those we've definitely gone in, and also some things where
you MIDI them up and sort of program the parts in there. Or,
that's all. Everything there is great. Actually, it's hardwired to here, and all the MIDI's back and forth, USB and MIDI.
Right.
Because some of these obviously, and also there's a CV gate thing somewhere. Can't remember where I put it. For running the SH1.
Yeah.
SH1 will often be used just for the filters. So it might be a soft synth, but going back through that to get a bit more grindy. Or I might go out through an amp.
Morris H1T.
A bit, yeah, exactly. That's the way it's always been written down on my track sheets. Takes a while.
The old ones are the best.
Yeah. In fact, that's covered in things I keep noticing from previous sessions. The Bender thumb wheel has an addition to it, which says Danton is a from a band way back. Marshall.
Yeah.
It's not mine. That's the Studios, but using that with a soak, so I'm not using. The Bagura.
Oh, right.
You can get some pretty huge guitar sounds. Also synths going through that and then out through this. It's like you got a lot of, you've got all that drive, but not having to work with an amp taking your head off in the room. Some of the old Springs, that old guitar amp has a lovely spring, so quite often a synth might go through that.
Do you use any soft synths though? Or
yeah, loads. Yeah. I mean, there's the Arturia collection, which I think is amazing. And then there's a bunch of others. Names elude me, but I'm trying to think of any others which I use regularly. Oh yeah, the BA1 actually, which is one.
Yeah, Baby Audio.
And this is thing about not wanting to buy more stuff. I bought Mini Brute software yesterday.
Oh, right.
Again, I think I'm very sort of vulnerable in the first 20 minutes of waking up. So if I've jumped from the Times to an Instagram post and there's something there, and then arrive here, the happy owner of some random soft synth. But yeah, the Mini Brute, I just love the sound. It's just really aggressive and bitey and full sounding.
Yeah.
For a soft synth.
Yeah.
But no, I think most of the synths it's just so much easier in here. That's more fun for just something playing around for a bit. Auto Heart, another band. I did an album with them 10 years ago, and we just came in here last year to do an EP.
All right.
Like a 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, like the DX7, I think if you're of our age, there was a point where you thought, I never want to see another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then because it hasn't really been turned on for about a decade, they were like, oh, great, DX7.
Yeah.
I was thinking, and then I loved it. It's like, oh my God, who would have thought I'd have liked that sound again? Whether it's called Gritar or something.
Yeah.
It's like, well, but there was quite a few presets which I thought, actually, that sounds pretty good, and I haven't heard it for a while. So it does get used.
Yeah. Things come around, don't they?
And it's just nice, something about manually playing with some faders on a synth.
Yes.
Just coming up.
It is more satisfying, isn't it? However good the emulations are.
Yes, it's not always so satisfying because you've got the best sound you've heard in your life, and then again you touch it and it's gone.
It's all gone. Yeah.
But that was serviced by Margot Broom, who's also the head of maintenance here.
Oh, okay.
And she does a lot of synth stuff, so it's great having that downstairs as well.
Yeah.
She's there to kind of consult on when things make strange noises or make no noises.
Yeah.
So it's a great team. That's the other thing about being at RAK.
Yeah.
From growing up in Sarm and the West Side, where we had, at Sarm we had 24-hour maintenance.
Yeah.
And, back in the days. But there was always maintenance. The place runs well. There's, assistant staff, there's runners. It just feels very functional as a place, RAK, which I love. It feels, artists who come in here who've been around a bit longer say it feels like, studio heyday still. And that's pretty unique.
Because they still got the API in Studio One.
The API in 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I have done, last year I did 5 albums in 2. And later in the year, I was trying to pop there's an EQ, one of the 560s or something. I suddenly realized I've never put a button in on the desk in all the time I've been here. So, luckily, hopefully I know the mics after all these years. You get to know that room. The desk sounds great when you're not really doing much to it. Just, it's just drive from the amps. Some external compression maybe, but literally I haven't put a button in. And you come up here and it works. It sounds great. It sounds very expansive. You can then tailor it more once I'm back up here. But it's not being, I was telling myself, am I being lazy? It's like, no, I'm not. It sounds good. So why would I start, fiddling around with it? Plus, if it's not a room that you're fully familiar with, sometimes you're just better off leaving EQ out.
But I mean, I always think API EQ, you can't really ruin stuff with it.
No, you definitely can't.
Nice and smooth and gentle.
Also, oh no, it's gone.
Oh no. that empty space there.
Liam, one of the assistants here, has got a lovely lunchbox with API EQs in.
Yeah.
And a couple of them that normally sits there. So it's
right. Somebody's commandeered it for something else. Yeah.
Well, no, it's his. But very happily he parks it in here.
Yeah.
There's a few things like that which I'm glad people keep in here. A couple of guitars.
Yeah.
Various pedals. That keeps changing every time I look at that shelf. So some are mine, some are again Liam's. I guess the other ones have gone with Liam, at least I hope so.
Tell me about your colourful, exciting thing with lots of buttons on it.
A theory board, you see, that, for me, that makes someone like myself sound far more competent. Basically, if I'm trying to, like with Hydra, rather than everything being the most basic triads, you get all these variations of every chord. Just put a key in.
Kind of MIDI.
There's a few things out there now.
It's like an accordion.
Yeah, it is very much like an accordion. Well, it's a bit like an omnichord.
Yeah.
But high-tech omnichord.
Yeah.
So whatever key you put in, or whatever scale, I mean, there's thousands. These become all the root, multiples of different chords within each note for that scale. Individual notes within the scale in different octaves. And then, since that's green, everything within that chord, which at the moment is just an E major, is all the notes within the chord on 4 different layers. So rather than me figuring out, sharps and flats.
Are you musically trained, Danton? Did you?
I played clarinet as a kid.
Did you?
But I realised I kind of learned to play to read. So rather than be able to then look at it and go, then obviously years of string sessions. So I can read a score.
Yeah, sure.
But for me, still figuring stuff out, I'm having to go, whereas this is you're straight into things. So this is not for sessions I do with other people.
What's that called?
This is called theory board.
Theory board.
But obviously it drives whatever I'm playing, so whatever synths you're up. So it's great for just making more interesting pads. Basically, chord extension I wouldn't normally play. Or I have to figure it out for ages.
Yeah, so it's an inspiration.
That's what it is. It's just really quick for that.
Yeah.
What was I doing? Actually, it was Hydra. Just thought, you get to a bit stuck. It's like, let me just play around for this for a second. Well, that's interesting, whatever it is. And you can't really go wrong. So, no, it's a great piece of gear. There's, I used to love the omnichords.
Yeah,
for writing.
Yeah, I've
they're
got an
great.
ancient one somewhere.
I did a version of Moon River with Morrisey and Steve Lillywhite, purely done on omnichords.
Right.
It was an obscure B-side. And I remember at the time thinking, that's one for the ether. And then years later, there was a country star in America who was listing her top 10 songs.
All right.
And number 6 or something like that was Moon River by Morrisey.
Yeah.
So you never know where these things are going to go. But yes, I like an omnichord in here. They do a really one, I think.
I think they've brought one out, haven't they? This sort of anniversary edition or something, I think. There's a newer one now. I've got an old one.
But no, this space is just working out. At the moment, it's working out great.
Well, it feels lovely and comfortable and very nice to have the view of St John's Wood through the window.
Yeah, it's quite, after being in Shoreditch and Soho, it's very calm.
Yeah.
Maybe it goes with...
Park down the end of the road.
Maybe the locations go with my age. I'm not sure if that's how it works. Move more towards a quieter life.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I do miss the sort of energy of Soho, I have to say, but it's such a great space to work in here. I can't complain.
Do you think you'll still be doing what you're doing in 5 years, or will AI have taken over from you?
It'll be either my hearing through old age or AI. Yeah, exactly. Probably been listening far too loud. Although I did have a hearing test and it was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I figured, 40 years of Marshalls and loud synths is going to be a bit messed up. AI is probably a bigger problem. I say a problem. I'm loving what AI is doing within our business in certain ways. A lot of the bits of gear I mentioned, the reason they're doing what they're doing is because of the AI part of the structure. And it gives you some pretty amazing toys. What it's doing with generating garbage tracks to populate platforms doesn't do any of us a favour. And there's obviously tons of that going on now.
Yeah.
Not really being mentioned as much as it should be, but tons. And also, bad players, not in the musical form, but using it as for revenue building. I think if you have established yourself in some way, then I think that you'll become maybe even more valuable to people, to be something which is novel and human. And there's a project I'm involved with out of here, which is based around the emotional side of music. Antec, and there's an AI element to what we do, but that in itself, coming back to something a bit more human, would be something which we pine for. In the same way that we go through these cycles of music, everything becomes very clean and pop and synthy for a while, then it comes back through in the curve and everyone wants a filthy band to go and see, and then they want to, it does this journey. It just keeps and having, again, for the period of time we've been doing this, it's been great because you kind of come back into fashion, for want of a better word. Some people want real drums, then they don't, and they don't want real drums. It comes, if you're here long enough, the cycles come back around. But AI will reduce a lot of the jobs AI will do in music, I think, have already gone. So for the people still doing it, it'll make their jobs quicker. You know, mainly with file management, I think.
Yeah, sure.
That side of it is quite useful.
I mean, do you think you're still sort of relevant to current pop music? Because when I listen, if you go on and listen to what was in the top 40, I sort of think there's never more than 2 chords in any of the songs. There's no intro. I sort of think, what is the appeal of this? And I wouldn't know how to make a record like this.
I think I know what you're saying, but I just don't want to sound like my granddad.
Well, that's it. I mean, this is the worry. You always, when you're younger, you think, I'm never going to stop listening to current music. I'm going to stay current.
Thing about this is certain, but there always has been, and there's lots of things in current charts, very new acts, where I think they're amazing. They sound incredible. Afterwards, I think I can't remember what the song is, but the actual sonic, what it does for me listening to it, and also the whole TikTok, everything in this 30-second structure now. Even when I finished albums, I finished an album here last year, and the team were here asking about the TikTok. I was like, okay, look, that's your domain.
Yeah.
It's still healthy for me to make songs in the way that I make songs. And then it's all in parts, you can pull it apart, create these versions, and that can then generate a song. A friend was involved in a huge song, but the kind of momentum for it came from TikTok. So I understand where it goes. Do I feel separated from it? I do, but I also want to listen to it and figure out how the hell they make these things sound so amazing. And again, you then get the plugins and you realize a lot of it is that. So pop music has always been pretty copy and paste, going back as long as you want.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more that way now, and some of the things which you're getting given incredible sounds. The kind of sounds which when you listen to them, you think, I've been fucking about on that lot for 2 hours and loads of other effects trying to get it to, and now it's like, preset A is the most incredible sounding, evolving synth part. Am I relevant? I don't know how that works. I think if you were 16 or 17, I probably wouldn't want to be the face you'd be doing a project with. I'm not sure. I think that's because of life, I think when I was that age, although I haven't said that, when I was that age, the kind of more punky things we were doing, the producers were older.
Yeah.
And also some of the people making my favorite music are, you look behind the scenes, you go, oh man, he's older than me.
Yeah.
So I tried not to be ageist, because I've always found that an annoying part of any industry. It's not often very constructive and is often kind of quite belittling, I think. But am I relevant to certain projects? No, but in the way I haven't been relevant to certain projects throughout my career. And I've always been the first to say that. That type of music, there's people who do it so much better than I can do. There's stuff I do okay, but that is, go to someone that's their field.
Well, you clearly do what you do extremely well.
Thank you.
Obviously,
I'm still enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, and if you're booked in for months and months ahead, then clearly
it's
a queue of people banging on the door.
Bookings though, everyone always wants the same little bit. It's just trying to smear it out.
Yeah, I guess that's where having Emma looking after you helps a bit, because there's a bit of
also when you're alternating between mixing, which is one kind of mindset, and time scale, against producing, which is another. You can kind of make the year work. But yeah, long may it carry on.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite mastering engineer? Do you always sort of send things to, or try and...
Well, I worked with John for years, Davis.
Yeah.
So obviously very sad
yes.
when I've just been working with, Manon Grandjean. She's a great mixer. I've worked, Manon, I worked with Manon when she was younger. Amazing the field that she's got herself in. Again, that's a very particular field. So, that's something which, hey, go to Manon. There's someone who knows how to do that. But she's mastering. And the project I did in Alabama, which is very acoustic and soulful, the thought was after that, how about Manon masters that with her pop sensibility in this very current pop sound, but does it to a sort of soul track that I've done in Fame, Alabama. So, and she did a great job on it. It kind of did bring a modernity to it.
Right.
I mean, most mastering is a subtle change. And again, it's not like a remix, but it brings an approach which is exactly what I wanted her to do.
Excellent.
And also John Webber at Air.
Oh, yeah.
Been doing some of the guitar bands, other stuff he did, professional. Lovely guy. Really great approach to mastering as well. You want people to listen to it and think about it. And they're not just jumping on pot straight away. Very subtle. If he has to do too much, he'd tell you. It's more of a mix thing than a mastering thing. He hasn't had to tell me that, thankfully. But so that's, we're kind of developing a new relationship now, but Manon and John seem to be the two
Yeah.
between things. And Manon's just great.
Yeah.
So he's just a lovely person to deal with.
Do you run off a listening version with the limiter on and then run off the...
So both. So
Wow.
they've got something to kind of get an idea of what we've been listening to
Yeah.
as a band, as the band and myself.
Mm.
I think most of them ask for that nowadays.
Yeah.
Having said that, even when there was a time where for some reason the non-limited version wasn't available. I can't remember what happened. I like to think it wasn't my fault. But and John had said, "Trust me, your limited version is still very usable."
Great.
Because there's only, you get things that come in like bricks.
Yeah, I'm
like
sure.
a listening one. I don't want to smash it out of shape too much. There's only a couple of dB really. You can get away with it.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Danton. Lovely to chat with you again after about 15 or 20 years or whatever it was.
Yes, no, it is. It's well, I think it is 20 years. It is like that series on TV, 7 Up, where you'll keep coming. You should have been there from my childhood.
Yeah.
But I'm basically watching my adult life.
Send us some
through
home movies.
studios.
Yeah.
I do hope you're around for my 60-something,
Yeah.
7 years time.
See you then.
Whatever. Yeah, it'll be the answer to some of those questions.
Yes.
It'll just be me and one fader and a bipedal robot
Yeah.
helping me out, taking me to the bathroom.
Superb.
Cheers.